And again, I can edit this, so, like, if you need to get comfortable, pee, like, whatever you want, I can change it.
Absolutely.
You know what I'm saying? Like, I'll delete it, I'll crop it, whatever we need to do.
I appreciate you.
Love that. So, let me do the intro. So, buenas, buenas, buenas. I'm Vanessa, the host of Chicklet, and Chicklet is a podcast where we unlock the power of stories by learning about ourselves through books. Each episode, I'll explore popular Chicklet themes and use them as a starting point for insightful conversations. Today we have my friend Priscilla.
Hello,
Hi.
nice to see you. I'm so happy we finally got together after...
I know.
Oh my gosh, I can't even imagine. I think it might have been 5 years.
Like, literally.
Literally
and it's funny because this is like our first time hanging out.
No,
and it's
it
like,
really is. And we're like, it's fine.
just be on the podcast.
We're always hanging out.
I love it. This is like what the podcast is, connecting us, getting us together. Like,
I feel like we have such a cool parasocial, non-creepy parasocial relationship.
Yes.
Where we're just like cheerleading each other on, and we're just so excited for each other's wins all the time. Yeah. And I'm always like, that girl's got me no matter what.
I love that. And you know what? I love that we're leading with the not creepy because, as my cousin Tati knows, I'm so creepy.
Me too.
Like, I'm such a creep. But wait, this story that I'm about to tell you is, I feel like I'm going to win. Well, you be the judge.
Let's do it.
Exactly. So, I don't know which house you live in our town. And when you post pictures, I'm always like, first of all, I'm checking to see if, like, creepers could know where you live based on what you post. But I can't. And I know our town very, very well. Yes. And I don't know which house you live at. So, compliment, and also I don't know where you live.
Thank you so
good
much.
Job.
I appreciate it. I'm not going to say it on the podcast, but I will also let you know where. Because you can drive by and honk if you want.
Yeah.
But it's like my purpose is to do that. I did criminology as undergrad.
Yeah.
And so it made me a little bit paranoid, especially with my kids on social media. Yeah. So I'll very rarely show uniforms or, like, I'll block out their name. Stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So I'm glad that you went through with the stalking because that makes me feel like everything I'm doing is for real good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm also, like, a creep because I'm always like, this is, like, I can't imagine, like, telling her, like, oh, I don't know where you live. You know what I'm saying?
I totally understand.
But yeah, exactly.
Because that's
you get
me.
It.
And
yeah.
I will say it's so easy to find you online. Like, if you really wanted to find somebody,
100%.
I could Google the most obscure thing and they'll be like, here's their address in the yellow page. And I'm like, now I'm gonna look your house in Zillow.
Or even, like, I know, like, people who have stalkers, like, if the stalkers will know if they, literally in the last episode I was talking about Randolph and Dover and, like, other things, so it's like they can narrow it down and know exactly where you live. So every single time I talk about those towns, I've never said the town that I live in, that's why I keep saying our town, town, but, like, they can figure it out.
Oh, for sure, you can figure it out. And so
you're trying to be careful, and you are careful. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You win. Love that. Let's talk about how we met.
Oh gosh, so I kept trying to go over this in my head because I love to be prepared, but I don't know how to do it.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, we met because your family friend is a family friend of my mother-in-law.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's just like such a weird 6th degree of our relationship.
Yeah.
But I think that we really bonded because we worked in the same restaurant.
Yeah.
She got me a job there after my first pregnancy. I was a young mom, 21. Yeah. And so I went to live with her at her apartment. And she got me this job and at this restaurant. And you were also working there. We were both hostessing. And I was really awkward at that time in my life. I feel like I was not... Yes. I definitely have been through... I feel like you and I kind of had similar journeys. Maybe opposite, like foil journeys, because I remember you saying you were abrasive and this and that, and, like, I never saw that, but, like, I could see how you could criticize yourself as that.
Okay.
And I was completely opposite. I was a very chuncha. Like, I didn't want to talk to anyone. I was awkward, and, like, I always stuck my foot in my mouth because I said the weirdest things to people. And so she was trying to get me out of my shell, and she felt like we would go well because we're so opposite.
Really?
Yeah.
She did?
Yeah.
She, like, match made us?
Yeah. She was like,
know that.
My friend Vanessa, and she's great, and but I'm like, she's very social, she's got a lot of friends, she's got a lot of family, and I'm like, I'm scared. So, it was a whole thing.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, if you listen to it, she listens to it.
Hi. She does?
Well, if she listens to it.
Okay, she will because you're on it.
Of course.
Right.
But I've also told her about it. She just has to figure out the Spotify. You know what I mean?
It's also on YouTube. too.
Oh, that's
so
a good point.
We can on YouTube.
We can put it right on the screen in the
yeah.
TV and be like, we're gonna watch my episode.
As a family.
As a family, this is family game night.
Yeah. Let's watch Mom on a podcast. So fun.
Oh my goodness. But yeah, so I didn't do very well at like being a good friend back then because I didn't know how to. So years of therapy and years of like not making, like mystifying a person. Like I feel like I do that a lot to people. And so like I'll be like, you're my best friend and now you're going to be my everything. Yeah. I've kind of put up barriers and boundaries and all that stuff. So the point here is that's how we met. Yeah. We weren't at the right time to be friends at that time, but I feel like we've gone our separate ways and come back to be much better friends for each other. Yeah. So
no, I've never once had that impression at all. I never once thought that you were awkward. What I really thought was that you were a young, driven mom.
Thanks.
And so it was like, I never once felt like she's being a bad friend. She doesn't reach out to me. Like, she doesn't like me. I never once felt that way. I was like, no, she's going to school. She has kids. She's married. Like, she has her own stuff. Like, I never once thought it was me, definitely. And I never thought anything negative about you.
I appreciate you.
I mean, yeah, that's just...
I appreciate you. Because I feel like, oh man, I feel bad for the friendships that I could have cultivated that I didn't. But I also understand that that was my space to be in. Yeah. I was doing a lot. Yeah. So, hey. At the end of the day, we got time for this now.
Yeah, exactly. Here we are now.
Here we
I'm
are.
not mad at it.
Yeah.
No. But I feel like moms have said that in the past, where it's like, I've heard my mom friends be like, when you have kids, you lose friends. Mm-hmm. And that's so sad.
It is.
As like a woman that doesn't have children, it's like, when my friends, if they don't text me back, I'm like, yeah, girl, you have, like, a kid. Like, you know what I'm saying? I'm not like, oh, no, they didn't text me back. They didn't go to my birthday. Like, no.
It's hard, too, because the guilt that you feel, too, where you're like, I'm so sorry. And then you kind of, I know I've had a couple of friends that I've kind of just blocked out because I'm like, I've let you guys down so many times. Aww. And who knows if they felt like that, but you internalize so much of it. And then I've had a couple of friends who have had new babies, and I don't reach out either, and I'm like, girl, this is when you should be villaging, and you just forget. Yeah.
Like, and time flies. Yeah. So it's like, if a baby's born in January, you're like, holy shit, it's June. Like,
now he's walking?
Yeah.
I'm so sorry I didn't send you, like, a plate of food, you know? And so it's just like, you get so wrapped up in your life, and honestly, it's such a nice wrap-up. Yeah. It's not like it's like, oh my god, I need an escape from this tornado. It's like, oh my god, I love being here, and it's next year. Yeah. So it's just crazy. Oh. And man, the flexibility that you learn to, you have to put that flexible expectation to people. Yeah. So like now,
not everyone, like, kids are not like,
no,
especially because, you know, you've heard on the podcast, like when I was like younger, like 20, it's like I was like such a like fucked up in my head. I was like super fucked up, and so it's like, I'm like, oh, if someone doesn't reach out, it's like, maybe they're just as fucked up as I was. You know what I'm saying?
That's
maybe
a really good point. I wouldn't even think that.
Maybe they were, but like, maybe they're just as depressed, or maybe they're super anxious or super insecure. You know what I'm saying? Like, maybe that's why it's not like, I feel like it's just understanding that people go through their own stuff.
Yes, for sure.
And it sucks that people don't do that, and then you lose friends. Like, that makes me sad.
Yeah, no. I feel like the longest friends that I've had are people that I not keep at an arm's length, but I'm not, like, taken care of. Yeah. I feel like I try to put myself in a position where I'm like I said, you're my best friend and everything is you, but then I feel like I'm also responsible for you. Whereas my best friendships have been like, love you so much, I'm gonna do my own thing, and I'll see you survive. Like, and it's been great. Yeah. So, reestablishing what I want in a friendship has been much healthier for everyone involved, because then they don't feel guilty, I don't feel guilty, it's just chill.
You don't have the like tumultuous like strain on the relationship if you have those like realistic things. I feel like I've gone through that too in like the past, like specifically moving to Texas. It's like I have friends who I was really 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 close to, and like I don't talk to them like at all anymore, and it's because I'm in Texas doing my own thing, and I don't have like the capacity to stalk them. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Because that's the type of person that I am. Like, if you tell me tomorrow you have a doctor's appointment, I'm like, hey, how was it? Like, what did they do? What are the results?
And I want to know.
The results are on Wednesday. Wednesday, I'm texting you how the results are.
Absolutely.
Which is like, nice, good, awesome. But it's like, to your point, it's like you have your own stuff to go through, so you can't do that. And that's how I feel like I'm going through now at 32. Yeah. You know?
Yeah, and those are your priorities.
Yeah.
You know, you're prioritizing you, and whatever you prioritize and whatever you put your energy towards, it's gonna be your whole life.
Yeah.
You know, without you even knowing it, you're just gonna take a step and suddenly deep end into that.
Yeah. I love
That's
that.
good. I'm so glad you went to Texas, and like, it just looks like you're thriving.
Yeah.
Out there.
It's funny because a lot of my aunts, older generation, right? They'll be like, oh, your boyfriend, you look so in love, you look so happy. It's like, yeah, sure, yeah. Also, I don't have like a 9 to 5. Like, I don't know.
Oh man, the happiness.
I don't know if like anyone realizes, like, finances aside, like, I don't have to like wake up and be anywhere at 9 o'clock. Yeah. Like, I don't have to be ready and at a desk at 9 a.m. Yeah. And my last job, I had to be like in central Jersey, which was like an hour in the morning. It would take an hour, so I'd have to leave my house at like 6 a.m. because we started at 7.
Oh my goodness.
So it's like,
that's a lot.
So now I don't have to wake up early as hell, which I am an early bird, but it's different like waking up and doing what you want versus waking up and like rushing to get to work.
Yes,
you know what I'm saying? So
for sure.
I don't have to do that. I don't have to answer stupid emails.
Yes.
I don't have to do things that I don't want to do.
Exactly.
And again, I need to talk about finances because it's not just how amazing that is, but I'm literally choosing to ignore my finances.
Good.
So that's why I'm so happy.
For you.
Yeah. And
It's
for like the
prioritized.
podcast, like I'm
Yeah.
really hoping, like I view it as like investing, and like
I agree. I love
make
this
more money.
podcast.
Thanks.
I feel like I feel like we're even closer since your podcast, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I understand so much more now.
I know.
I wish I had the stomach and the courage and bravery to put myself out there all the time, to be as vulnerable as you do. It's really hard.
Yeah.
And so like props for that. It's not just like chatting with a friend, like you're putting yourself out there for so many people. So you're doing a really good job.
Thanks. I feel like you can do it though.
Thanks. I'm okay.
Because, like, you've already done, like, you've done pretty well talking about, like, motherhood and the types of friends and, like, prioritizing. Like, you kind of are doing it in, like, a small 1 hour, like, dose.
Yeah.
So you have the capacity.
Thank you. I feel like I'm such I'm not secretive, and I'm not private either. Like, I don't mind sharing, but there's a very guarded part of me where I'm like, this is mine. Thank you.
Yeah.
This is totally mine.
Yeah.
Like, and maybe this comes from my need to be a little mysterious, is like, don't perceive me, like, you don't know where I am. But then I'll post like a dumpling or something, and you're like, yes.
Yeah. Like that. Like, exactly, mystery. I like that.
Exactly. It's just like something carried over from being a kid and like having to tell everybody my business all the time. And I'm like, now I'm gonna be a woman and a shroud of darkness, and it's not true. No. Like, it's literally just...
Does that have anything to do with like your signs? Because you're into like signs, right?
I really am.
Is your sign like...
So we're both Sagittarius suns.
Okay.
Right? But you have a Taurus moon, I'm pretty sure.
And why? Because you know me? Like, you've diagnosed me as a Taurus moon?
I just feel like you've got a lot of Taurus placements because of how...
I think you're right.
Steadfast you are.
Okay.
And I have a Taurus moon, so I feel like that's why we kind of connect a little bit more. But the rest of my chart's in Scorpio, and so it has a lot to do with that, like, constant transformation, and also feeling the need to be private, but also being really extreme and like not knowing how to do it. So it's like it's a lot to balance. Yeah. But I find that even if you don't believe in astrology, like, I don't believe in the stock market, and that's something that people study. So it is what it is, and I feel like it helps me understand me, and if it's not harming anyone, like, I got my little associate's certificate in astrology over the pandemic, because why not? Like, of course. What else were we doing?
Yeah, and it makes you happy, and I love that. 2 things. One, I always tell my boyfriend that the stock market is like fake. It's like a video game.
It's like astrology. Like, you're looking at trends, you're seeing the things change, and you're saying this is gonna happen then. It's the same thing, and no one wants to talk about it. Yeah, just one is like stars, and other one is like people on apps. Yes. Like buying this fake money. Exactly. Because money is fake now. Money is fake. I don't have anything in my hands. Girl. Someone could take the fake numbers, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. A dollar bill in my old purse. I was like, a relic. Yeah. Of an ancient time. Like, when was the last time I didn't use Apple Pay for something? Yeah. And if you use Apple Pay, it's not real. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. And then suddenly it's like, oh, -10. Oop. Sorry. Yeah. Let me just put some more fake money. Yeah, exactly. Like, what is going on? The second thing is that you said that you got your associates in astrology. I know a girl
that's getting her master's in mathematics in Australia, and it's just for fun.
I love her.
It's not for
so
career
much.
development. And I'm like,
Good.
I wish that education was, like, affordable. Maybe even not free. Just, like, affordable.
Yes.
Because I would get, like, I would
so
be...
many degrees. I'd
like,
love
so
to
many,
learn.
of course. I would be so well-rounded and so educated and so fulfilled and, like,
Yeah.
walking the earth
With
so
just all this
happy.
knowledge.
Because
Like,
last year, I was supposed to go... I was thinking about going to get my master's in, like, business, like, administration. Is that what...
okay.
Like a business
Like,
master's.
organization. Yeah, your MBA.
MBA, exactly. So I was looking into it, but like
It's so expensive.
it's so expensive, and I was looking at schools in Chicago.
Oh,
so I'm like, okay, so
that'd be so cool.
I have to like get an apartment,
Yeah.
and like pay for food,
No.
and like go to all the events, and like who's doing that?
I don't know, girl. They got good hot dogs. That's really about it.
And it's also really cold.
Oh no, the lake freezes.
Yeah, that's crazy, and it's a big
In
lake.
waves.
Yeah,
In
yeah.
waves it freezes.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh.
No,
No.
So I'm like, I wish like education was affordable, because then
I
I would
agree.
do more of like what you're saying, like following those, filling your cup,
Yeah.
like literally.
Exactly. I think that's so fulfilling. Like, I think
Yeah.
over the pandemic, a lot of people did the Cornell,
Yeah.
like, certificates because they were free and this and that. And I was like, oh, I should have taken advantage because now nothing's free.
Yeah.
Like, you gotta pay out the butt just to know, like, a
Like
secret
4,000
to a
or something.
KPI. Like,
Yeah.
it's just so nuts to me.
Yeah.
And, like, I teach at our community college. And these kids are like, how much money am I gonna make? And I'm like...
First of
you
all,
better love it.
Yeah, you better love it, and also Google it.
Yeah, half the time, and like, listen, sometimes I feel very exploitative because I'm like, you could just chat GPT everything that I'm teaching you.
Yeah.
And you are so much brighter and so much better than this. Like, I wish they weren't charging you and I'm making a fraction of that, but
Yeah.
like, I do it because I just love
Yeah.
my students. They're
Yeah.
so cool, and like, they've got such big dreams and like such great ideas. And I just hope the best for them. And I hope the best for everyone. Like, I
Yeah,
just
of course.
wish people could just learn like this.
Yeah.
Like, wouldn't that be fun?
If we were in charge, we would make it happen.
My husband was saying the other day that, do you really think women would run the world better? I'm like, girl, we'd have time for so many things.
Yes.
4-hour workdays. 4 times a week, maybe. Wednesday has to be the day off because we need to do things like the post office.
Right.
Like, post office being closed on Saturday and Sunday makes no sense to me.
Because who's taking off work? Who can go do things?
Like, doctors not being open? Like, what do you...
Yeah, doesn't make sense.
People can't do things on the weekends?
Yeah.
If we're all working Monday to Friday and only have weekends free, who's doing the stuff on the
Doesn't make
weekends?
sense.
It doesn't
That
make
doesn't
sense.
make sense.
Anyway.
Have you read the book The Power? And I
No.
think there's a TV show on it too.
Oh, is that when Victorian women come out with the power to
Rule the World.
rule the world?
Yeah.
Okay, I have to read it. It's on my list.
I started to read it, and I didn't finish reading it because I didn't like it.
That's fair.
But I was in a book club in Austin, and they read it, and a couple of women liked it, but it was like what the world would be like if women ruled the world, right? And so it was like what currently happens now, and like also a lot worse. So I was like, I don't think that I want to read a book about like the premise is good, but then like
Yeah.
the execution, I don't like that because I don't think it's true.
I don't think it's true. That's like if women ran the world like men. And that's not
Yeah,
what we would
no.
do.
It would just be like, I think that there would still be fucked up stuff like
Well, because
happening because
people are
humans,
evil, you
right,
know.
and greed and
Power.
whatever
Mhm.
normal, natural human like
Yeah.
tendencies. But then it's like, I think a lot of it would be
I think a lot
better.
of I think a lot of it has to do with just communication styles.
Yeah.
Like in business, I learned a lot about I worked out of New York for a year. I loved the job, but it was so different than what I was doing at this current job, which I came back to. And it was much more man-oriented in the city. And I learned a whole different communication style.
Yeah.
It was like, this doesn't concern you. There's no need for you to ask that question. And I was like, he hates me.
yeah.
And he didn't. He was just like, it really doesn't concern
Yeah.
you. Like, there's no need to waste your time and energy on that. And like, picking up on those different things, I could understand easily why this world runs the way that it runs and that it doesn't always work for everyone. Versus here, where I am, it's so much more enmeshed and collaborative. And like, everybody knows everything about you. So I can understand how that environment wouldn't work for everyone. But at least it's a little more inclusive of other communication styles.
Not just like one, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I feel like for a long time I was very against learning that communication style that you were just describing.
It's hard.
Yeah, it is so hard, and it's so foreign to like us, right? Like, and so I was like, I don't need to learn that. I don't need that. But in the last like year, I really have been trying to not like conform and lean into it, but learn it and participate in it and practice that skill, because especially if I'm going to try to do like advertisements and reach out to brands, like I do need to talk that talk.
Yeah, and honestly, it helps you form a weird new boundary for yourself.
Yeah.
Where you're being very direct with what you want and need.
Yeah.
And you don't give anybody space for anything else.
Yeah.
And framing it in that way makes me feel like, okay, I'm not just being like some corporate bro. Like, it makes me feel like I'm asserting myself.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, this is what I need. When can you give it to me by? And it feels good. It feels nice.
Yeah.
But it also, coming from the collaborative environment where I'm at now, still makes you see people as people.
Yeah.
And so, like, if there's some way to marry those two,
Yeah.
it would be fantastic, you know?
Which I think is like what women like generally do.
Yes.
Like specifically in the workplace. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like we will take that collectiveness and like that mothering and caring for people, not to be stereotypical, but like, and then also that jargon and like that communication style that is the business world, and we'll like provide that and that's like our uniqueness and what that's why they need to hire us and pay us.
That's what I'm saying. Just like keep paying us.
And also promote us, because you saw that stat that came out like last week, I think, where it's like in entry-level positions, it's like 3% Latina, and then like manager positions, it's 2% Latina, and then like CEO or C-level executives, it's 1% Latina. So it's like, it's already small as fuck to begin with, and then as you keep going, it's just smaller and smaller. So it's like, pay us, promote us, listen to us.
Yeah, and for sure, I feel like it has a lot to do with culture, too.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like Latinas as a culture just tend to be very servicial. Like, they're very, like, you know, at your service. Like, what do you need? Let me do for you. And so you kind of get stuck in that routine where you forget that you can ask for things, too.
Yeah.
It gets a little wild there. A little dicey.
Yeah. But we're figuring it out. Trying our best.
Yeah, that's the point, right?
Yeah, literally. Like, I totally agree.
Yeah.
Just go and do stuff and, like, do it wrong, and then, like, do better next time.
Yes. Make better mistakes tomorrow.
Yeah,
exactly.
And, like, keep learning. Yeah.
Sorry.
No, go.
I'm gonna segue.
Yeah.
Are you ready?
Yeah.
Speaking of culture and, like, Latina culture, I felt that when I met my mother-in-law, I felt like right at home, even though we were so different in terms of culture, because Irish and Puerto Rican cultures are very, like, matriarch first.
Yeah.
She really ran her household. I mean, she was a single mom, but also, like, everyone looked up to her and her family, and so I was like, oh, that's the matriarch. And in my home, I'm not in a good position with my parents, but, like, my grandma ran the household, essentially. And so, like, I was like, oh, like, that's just what she is. Like, it felt comfortable. And the emphasis on family in Irish culture, like, it's very, like, we stick to our own, we protect our own, and I'm not saying it's not like that for every other culture, but to me, I was like, this is the same thing in English.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
You know, the Catholic first, the worshiping of the sun, like, all these different things, little tidbits, really felt like I was, like, at home in my little Irish home. Yeah. So I loved and picked up this book because I love Irish shows.
Yes.
And, like, it's so funny to me. There's a show called Al Fondo Hay Sitio, and it's, like, a Peruvian comedy. And they're just, like, putting themselves in these ridiculous, like, situations, and, like, they're just like, oh, life, you know?
Yeah,
and it's hilarious, and it's sad at the same time. Like, you'll cry for them, and you'll, you know, laugh with them. And I also found this show called Mrs. Brown's Boys, and it's an Irish show that's the same thing. It's like a slice of life. This older lady's taking care of her 5 adult children, and, like, one's a priest and the other one's gay, and, like, it's just, like, all of these different things, and it's, like, really sad and, like, also really funny. And I just love thinking of their comedy as being the same. And so, like, I love watching Irish TV because of that.
Yeah.
And so when I picked up this book, I was like, oh, I want to just listen to something
Oh, you did audiobook?
I did both.
Oh, at the same time, or like sometimes audio, sometimes reading?
No, I finished it all the way through in audio, and then I went back and reread it.
Wow.
Because I loved it so much. And I felt nostalgic for it.
Yeah.
So I read it, I listened to it, and I was just like, this little Irish lady is just talking to me in her little accent, and I love it so much. And then at the end of the book, I felt like I had missed so many parts that were important.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like I want to go back. So I went back and I read it, and it was just as good. It was so good. It was so well written that I feel like I need to tell everybody about it, because it's such a little tiny book. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's such a like quaint, on the shelf kind of book.
Yeah.
And it's really about what we've been talking about.
Literally, I've thought that the entire time, and like how Rachel fits into that.
Yeah.
Because it's literally everything that we were just describing.
Yeah, for sure. It's just like being so weird in your 20s, and like everything's so urgent and so dramatic, and like your life is always ending, and that's really what this book is about.
Yeah.
And like I felt like nostalgic at the end of it.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, my 20s. Remember when it was like everything was so drama?
Yeah.
And I think that the author does a really great job at encapsulating that nostalgia by like putting it side to side with all of these crazy things that Rachel and James and other James and these crazy adults went through. So I would love to hear about what you thought.
No, I 100% agree. I really love the book. I feel like it was super relatable, specifically because, you know, you're not 30 yet.
Yeah, I
just turned 30.
Just turned 30 in November. We went to England to celebrate.
Oh, nice. That's why you went to England. Nice.
Yes.
But it's like, she's, I think, in her 40s, going back and talking about her 20s. So, not that we're in our 40s, but we have a similar thing of, like, going back, like you're saying, the nostalgia of looking back at where we were. And again, like, when you're going through it, you really feel like you're kind of right a little bit, and like your experience is like the experience, and this is like actually what happened. But then when we and Rachel go back to looking back at our 20s, we're like, wait, like this was just our viewpoint and like our experience. It's not necessarily that it was right or factual, you know what I'm saying? And I feel like the author, to your point, is like she did a really good job of having her go back, which is so relatable for us.
Yes, and just like what we were doing, we don't ever go back and nitpick at all those situations. I feel like now that we're healthy minded, we don't like, oh, I was so stupid, I was so this. It's like we come from a place of love looking at ourselves, and that's really what I felt like she was looking at herself in such a loving light. Like she would talk about herself like, oh, you're so silly, you dingbat, like all of these different things, but she doesn't hate herself.
No.
She's so at peace with herself, and I felt that's the part that I really loved, is how like everything was crazy, and at the end, it's not. Everything's chill.
Yeah.
And, like, this book was so special because it's one of the first books that I didn't read for the plot. There was no plot. It was just vibes.
Yeah.
It was so character-driven. There were 4 main characters that were so well fleshed out. Like, I felt like I knew them.
Yeah.
You know? And, like, I could touch their hair. Like, it really feels like I can imagine them in my mind. So, I think that this author was really good at that.
Yeah. And I loved her relationship with James. They were, like, real best friends, and, like, still, you know, to this day, even though it's, like, fictional characters, but, like, still to this day, they're still so close, and, like, best friends. It's almost like, it's like a warm feeling, I feel, like, their relationship of just, like, you know, how the house that they lived in, and like all the shitty things that happened, and they went through together, and they were there for each other, and they were kind of bad friends to each other.
They're horrible.
Like, right? Like
they were so horrible to each other.
But because they were kids,
they
didn't know. They weren't like malicious about it.
Course.
They were just,
and like
they had no idea.
I think that's the point too. Is like you make such bad choices.
Yes.
You make like horrible life choices when you're 20 and poor.
Yeah.
That you're like, it's fine. Yeah. And then you come out of it and you're like, oh my god, do you remember when we ate literal bread and wine for 2 weeks?
When you're like you're my professor, your lover who's like married to a woman, he provided that bread, cheese, and wine.
Literally, that's all you ate. It was crazy. And like, I think that dynamic between, I don't know if do you want to talk about the plot a little bit?
We did, yeah, sure.
Okay, I was gonna say. So, essentially, you're following a flashback of 40-year-old Rachel.
Yeah.
She's now a wonderful columnist, and she accomplished all of her dreams, which is kind of nice to hear in the beginning. Because if you started right in the middle of her life, you'd be like, girl, are you gonna be okay?
Yeah, you literally.
You might die.
Literally.
You might die in an alley.
Crazy. I was concerned.
I was concerned for her health. She needed vitamins.
Yeah.
And she's looking back, she's like beautifully pregnant and like just doing a column for fun, and she finds out this horrific news about this man that she used to know, and that's when all these memories start flooding back. And so we kind of juxtapose her as an adult and her remembering her life with James. I'm gonna forget his last name.
I want to say Crowley, but I don't think it's Crowley.
I don't think it's Hold on.
Yeah, look it up. Look it up.
The Kindle.
Let's look it up.
Not Carrie.
No.
Carrie's her husband.
Yeah. Has to be one of the first James.
It's the James. It has to be just James something.
We'll just call him best friend James.
Best friend James.
Because I don't know his last name.
Dr. Byrne James. This is dumb. I can't believe I can't remember this.
Well, I'll put it in the description. I'll
Good.
be like, this is James, the best friend's last name.
Yes. Bestie James.
Yeah.
They literally met at a party. No, they met at the bookshop.
Yes.
And for the first 2 weeks of her working there, he thought she was some girl named Sabrina, and her name's Rachel. And she was like, fine with it. She was like, okay, my name's Sabrina, I guess now. And didn't say a word about it. They developed such a weird relationship. Like, they were just coworkers, and then suddenly they were best friends. Like, kind of like how you do at a kindergarten playground.
Literally, yeah.
Where you're like, are we friends now? And now, like, that's my whole life. It's so juvenile. And she always kind of thought he was gay, but then she, like, assumed. When he came on to her one day, she was like, but you're gay. And he was like, me? Like, he had such a big thing about it. And I think it's so important. Context is important because... Yeah. 2008 was not an LGBTQ plus friendly time for anyone involved. And in Ireland, no.
And I think even in 2008, I don't know if that's the exact year, but around that time, Obama had said that, like, gay people, like, have the right to marry. He was the first president in the United States to say that. Yeah. And so it's, like, in this time, and he's, like, a gay kid in London, it's, like, no shit, he didn't want to come out. It's 2024, and there's still people that don't want to come out, you know?
Absolutely
It's,
not.
like, it was, like, you understood. I was frustrated, and I was pissed. I'm, like, I just want him to come out. Like, you don't want him to feel that way, obviously, but you understood, especially in 2008.
Yeah, and it was actually really nice because I was unfamiliar. I'm not a queer person, so, like, I'm not familiar with, like, coming out for me. Like, I was like, you come out of the closet, like, that's what you think it is, but actually, and I love Kindle because of this, but he was talking about how it was a political statement and not a personal one. I think that's, like, one of his direct quotes, and I didn't understand that. And he was talking about, like, the background of AIDS and how a lot of queer people in that time, when there was this horrific death and mistreatment of people with AIDS, coming out was a statement so that you could almost say, like, me too, like, I'm also this, and we don't have to be hidden, and it's not a stigma. Like, people without AIDS live as queer people throughout their entire lives, and, like, so I didn't understand that was coming out in the 80s because I had no context, and so it was really nice to see and understand that part of it and how political it was, because for people like the professor,
because he was older at that point.
Exactly.
Because he was, like, in his, was it 30s at that point?
You know what's crazy? I think he was only 29.
No way.
I think so.
No way.
Hold on, let me see.
If he's 8 years older, then...
He's only 8 years older, I think.
But I honestly, I get it. I really do, because then at that point, what was he going to come out in 2000, in the year 2000?
Yeah.
We thought the world was going to end when the year turned from 1999 to 2000. We thought the, like, computers couldn't handle the zeros.
Exactly.
I remember that. I don't think he was, like...
I think he was barely in his 30s. Yeah. Worst case 31, 32.
Yeah.
And, like, I think of that, I'm like, you thought I was old?
Yeah.
The way they describe him is, like, this huge, lumbering professor, and, like...
But I think when you're in your 20s, I think you do think that of people in their 30s.
You're just like, oh my god.
And then now that we're in our 30s, it's like...
Don't look at me like
60-year-olds, you're like, oh, you're young. Yeah. Like, because we're older now.
My mother-in-law is in her 60s and fully running around with my 2 children.
A normal person.
Yeah.
You know? Like, but 20-year-olds, it's like, oh, 30-year-olds are so old. But it's, like, not true.
It's so not true. And, like, there's so much life, obviously. I mean, she's having a baby at 40.
Yeah.
So, like, it's really cool to see she's now not outlived, but, like, past the age where he was when he was making his bad decision with these children. the point here is that Rachel has this huge crush on her professor, and my favorite quote of hers is that she was a very tall girl. She was, I think, 6 foot and like that's pretty tall. It's not like huge, but whatever. She always described herself as lumbering, and she said she wanted to be caught in a beam of sunlight looking elegant and melancholy. That's literally what I just said, actually. Possibly writing a poem at the same time. And I tried this for years, and it took me until my mid-20s to realize that this is strictly for short women. And that part for me is so funny, because I'm like, it really is, like, you try your best to be, like, give your air of, like, mystery, and it's like, girl, you're just a girl.
Literally.
You're literally just a girl.
And, like, no one's, like, paying attention.
No one's paying it. They're so self-involved in your 20s.
Yes.
Like, everybody's thinking of themselves like that. Yes. Like, going to the gym, like...
Even now, 30-year-olds, everyone is, like, focused on themselves. So that brings us to the end of part 1. Thank you for listening, and tune in for the next episode, part 2 of the Rachel incident in 2 weeks.